Our lives are lived around three dimensions of time. A past we remember, a present we experience, and a future we anticipate. We can no more eliminate anticipation of the future than we can blot out memories of the past. Both are part of our lives and must be included in the experiences of today. Usually we do okay in coping with the past. The real problem comes in worrying about the future. Someone once said, the one thing we can expect in the future is the unexpected. After sheer odds tell us there are bound to be crises and catastrophes in the future. Events we haven't even dreamed of certainly could happen. Like Jesus told the people of his own time that the temple would be destroyed. It had existed for centuries, and they presumed it would always be there. So they asked him when it would happen and how they would know that it was going to happen. Indeed, the temple was destroyed just 40 years later. But Jesus assured them that in the meantime, a lot of other calamities would happen. Earthquakes, plagues, and famines. And besides that, even their families and best friends would turn on them, and some of them would actually be put to death. Boy, Jesus was just full of good news for them, wasn't he? But actually, on the other hand, they certainly wouldn't have wanted him to lie to them just to make them feel better. Those words of Jesus were primarily addressed to the people that were right there with him that day. But history indicates that you and I, as well as the millions of people in between then and now, are not to be excluded. Just looking at the tsunamis, the fierce fires, wars, and all the other crises in our own times should convince us that the present times are not immune from these horrible catastrophes. On top of all of this, each one of us has to face the fact of our own personal demise at some time, somewhere, and somehow, sooner or later. When you think about all this for very long, it wouldn't be hard to work up a real panic attack. So how do we cope with all the dire possibilities that actually are, or at least could be, a part of our own future? Well, an ancient Hebrew poet once faced a similar experience. Hundreds of years ago, he called it walking through a dark valley. It doesn't tell us what it was, but it certainly told us how it felt. This was the 23rd Psalm. He said it was a dark valley. It was dark. He couldn't see where he was going, and it was a valley, a very low point in his life. In fact, the only thing that enabled that poet to cope with the situation was the presence of God. He said to God, even though I walk through this dark valley, I fear no evil, for you, Lord, are at my side. Think about that for a moment. That's a beautiful picture, isn't it? God and a human being walking through a horrible crisis, arm in arm, hand in hand. Can we make it safely through the uncertain future? Probably not. But, like the poet said, God and ourselves are a very safe bet. But it's got to include both.